She was turned away from a fancy restaurant, humiliated for not fitting in. Little did they know, the woman they dismissed would soon own the entire franchise, leaving everyone stunned. This is a story of resilience, revenge, and rewriting the rules. You won't believe how it all unfolds. It was a Friday evening, and I was feeling good. After a long week of work, I decided to treat myself to dinner at a fancy restaurant I'd heard so much about. It wasn't a special occasion, I just wanted to enjoy a nice meal, relax, and take in the ambiance. I put on my favorite dress, a sleek black number that made me feel confident and elegant. With a touch of makeup and my hair styled just right, I was ready. When I arrived at the restaurant, the golden lights from the chandelier spilled through the tall windows, making the place look even more extravagant than I'd imagined. The valet opened my car door, and I stepped out, clutching my small purse. As I walked inside, the soft hum of classical music filled the air. People dressed in designer clothes sat at tables draped in crisp white linens, sipping wine and laughing softly. The hostess, a young woman with a clipboard, greeted me with a polite smile. At first, "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" she asked, glancing at me briefly before shifting her attention back to her clipboard. "No, I don't," I admitted, "but I was hoping you might have a table available." Her smile faded, and her eyes scanned me more closely. I could feel her gaze linger on my simple dress and the lack of a designer logo on my handbag. Her expression changed, no longer welcoming, but judgmental. "I'm sorry," she said curtly, "but we're fully booked tonight." I glanced around. There were several empty tables, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I tried again. "I don't mind waiting if something opens up. I'd really like to dine here tonight." She didn't even hesitate. "That won't be possible. We have a strict dress code and seating policy. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable dining somewhere else." Somewhere else? The words hit me like a slap. I looked down at myself, confused. My outfit was modest but elegant. I didn't understand. Before I could respond, a man stepped up behind me. He was wearing a tailored suit and a shiny watch that sparkled under the lights. The hostess's demeanor shifted instantly. "Good evening, sir," she said with a warm smile, her tone suddenly cheerful. "Right this way, your table is ready." As he walked past, the hostess didn't even glance back at me. She'd made it clear, I wasn't welcome here. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as I turned and walked out. The valet handed me my keys without a word, and as I got into my car, tears stung my eyes. I wasn't upset just because I'd been turned away. It was the way she dismissed me, like I didn't belong, like I wasn't good enough. I sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Then I took a deep breath and drove off. But as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The incident at the restaurant stuck with me for days. At first, I felt humiliated, but that humiliation quickly turned into anger. Not just anger at how I'd been treated, but anger at the assumption that people like me didn't belong in places like that. I thought about my life, my journey. I had worked hard for everything I had. I came from a modest background, where luxury wasn't something we could afford. But through grit and determination, I had built a successful career. I had earned the right to treat myself and enjoy the finer things in life. But that hostess didn't see that. All she saw was someone she believed didn't fit their idea of worthy. I confided in my best friend Maya about what happened. She listened quietly, then leaned back in her chair with her arms crossed. "You know what? You should teach them a lesson. Show them exactly who you are." I laughed it off. "What am I supposed to do? March in there and demand a table?" "No," she said with a sly grin. "Do something bigger. Something they'll never forget." At first, I thought Maya was just trying to cheer me up, but as I lay awake that night, her words echoed in my head. Something bigger. Something they'll never forget. I got out of bed and opened my laptop. I started researching the restaurant, its history, its owners. As it turned out, the place wasn't part of a big chain. It was a franchise owned by a local investor. And that's when the idea hit me. I wasn't going to yell or cause a scene. I wasn't going to beg them to let me in. I was going to buy the entire franchise. It wasn't an impulsive decision. I knew it would take time, money, and planning, but I was willing to put in the effort. I called my financial advisor the next morning to discuss the feasibility of the plan. "You want to buy a restaurant?" he asked, surprised. "No," I replied. I want to buy that restaurant. Over the next few weeks, I poured every ounce of energy into making my plan a reality. I wasn't just buying a restaurant, I was making a statement. The first step was reaching out to the current franchise owner. Through a series of connections and persistent calls, I finally got in touch with him. He was an older gentleman, polite but clearly business-minded. "Why do you want to buy this franchise?" he asked during our first meeting. I smiled, keeping my tone professional. "Because I see potential. Your restaurant has a great reputation, but I think it could be even better." He nodded thoughtfully. We went over the financial details, and while the price was steep, I had spent years saving and investing wisely. I also had a few assets I could leverage if needed. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I doubted myself, wondering if this was all too much. But every time I thought about walking away, I remembered the look on that hostess's face. The way she had dismissed me, as if I didn't matter. That memory fueled me. After months of negotiations, paperwork, and more sleepless nights than I could count, the deal was finalized. I was officially the owner of the franchise. The first thing I did? Schedule a visit to the restaurant that started it all. The day had finally arrived. Dressed in a sleek, custom-tailored suit, I pulled up to the restaurant that had once turned me away. My car, a luxury sedan I rarely drove, gleamed under the soft lights of the valet area. This time, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't there for validation, I already knew my worth. As I stepped out of the car, the same valet who had handed me my keys without a word months ago now greeted me warmly. "Good evening, ma'am," he said, opening the door with a smile. I walked inside, the heels of my shoes clicking against the polished marble floor. The place looked just as extravagant as before. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and the soft hum of conversation mixed with the gentle notes of live piano music. The hostess was different this time, but her demeanor wasn't. She looked me up and down, her polite smile faltering slightly as her eyes lingered on my simple yet elegant attire. "Do you have a reservation?" she asked. "No," I replied calmly, "but I believe there's always a table available for the owner." Her eyes widened in confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The owner?" I smiled. "Yes, me." At that moment, the restaurant manager walked up, a man I'd spoken with briefly during the transition of ownership. His face lit up when he saw me. "Miss Daniels, welcome back. We're honored to have you here tonight." The hostess froze, her face turning pale as she realized what was happening. She stammered an apology, but I waved it off. "It's fine," I said with a warm but firm tone. "Let's focus on making sure every guest feels welcome, no matter what." I walked through the dining area, glancing at the familiar scene of diners enjoying their meals. This time, I wasn't an outsider looking in. I was in charge. The manager escorted me to the best table in the house, a quiet corner with a perfect view of the restaurant. As I sat down, he handed me a glass of their finest wine on the house. The moment felt surreal, but also deeply satisfying. I wasn't there to gloat or seek revenge. I was there to change the culture of the place, turn it into the kind of restaurant where anyone could feel special and respected. As I sipped my wine, I couldn't help but glance at the hostess, now nervously attending to other guests. I hoped she would learn the same lesson I had learned: humility, respect, and the value of treating people with kindness. That night wasn't just about claiming victory. It was about creating a space where no one would ever have to feel the way I did that day. Months after taking over the restaurant, I sat in my office overlooking the bustling dining room below. The transformation was undeniable. The restaurant wasn't just a place for fine dining anymore. It had become a symbol of inclusivity and warmth. I had implemented changes from the ground up. Every staff member underwent hospitality training, emphasizing kindness and respect above all else. The dress code was relaxed to ensure no one felt out of place, and the menu included options for all budgets without compromising on quality. One evening, as I walked through the dining room, I spotted a young woman at the hostess stand. She wore a modest dress and carried a small handbag, looking slightly nervous but hopeful, much like I had that night. The hostess, now trained in our new values, greeted her warmly. "Welcome, do you have a reservation?" The woman hesitated. "No, I don't. Is that okay?" "Of course," the hostess said with a genuine smile. "Let me find a table for you." I watched as the young woman was seated, her face lighting up with gratitude. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes. Later that evening, as I walked back to my office, I couldn't help but think about how far I'd come. That initial moment of rejection had been painful, but it had sparked something in me, a determination to turn that pain into progress. It wasn't just about proving a point to the people who doubted me. It was about creating a legacy, one that reminded others that no one should ever feel like they don't belong. Looking back, I didn't just buy a restaurant. I bought the chance to make a difference, to show the world and myself that resilience and kindness could rewrite any story. As I closed my office door for the night, I felt a deep sense of peace. This wasn't just a win for me, it was a win for everyone who had ever been made to feel small. And that, more than anything, was worth celebrating. Thank you so much for watching this inspiring story. If it moved you, taught you something, or simply brightened your day, we'd love your support. Let's hear your thoughts. What did you take away from this story? Share your reflections in the comments below. Like the story? Show us by giving it a thumbs up. It helps more people discover this content. Know someone who'd love this story? Share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful and emotional stories just like this one. Hit the notification bell so you're always the first to know when we post something new. Your support means everything to us. It's what keeps us going and motivates us to share more incredible stories with you. Thank you for being part of our journey, and we'll see you in the next video.